green machine. We hit them hard, so they see green.
Howdy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. BJ and Game Day back again for another week. You got Brent, you got Vaughan, and a bit of I think it's the first time ever on BJ and Game Day. A bit of a new face, a special co-host with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Adrian, welcome, mate. How are we?
I'm super, lads. Good to get the call up, but I'm on. It's a privilege. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, look, mate, like I said, this is, I think, BJ on Game Day first, if I'm not mistaken. So a bit of a historic evening for us tonight, a special co-host, mate. So, put a feather in the cap, mate. Do you want to tell the people a little bit about, how long you've been playing Supercoach? I know you're pretty active, people in the community, if they've seen you around, Adrianosaurus Rex. But, any notable overall finishes or cash comp wins over the years, mate? Just anything you want to mention to the peeps before we jump into it tonight?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Well, so everyone probably knows me as Adrianosaurus Rex on there. So I'm fairly active in the community, and I do get a lot of hate mail in there. Not probably Tidswell and who's that other clown in there?
Well, Lucky.
Lucky Singh. But yeah, I mean, I played for I think more than 5 years. I sort of came in as an NRL fan more than a fantasy sports fan, but I'm a gambler. So so every year I usually, I have about 8 leagues that are all cash leagues, and I do all right in the cash leagues. I've cleaned up the last few years. Like I think the best year I had, I won about $5,000, and
wow.
and I just came off recently off the Big Bash and won about $4,000. So there's some money to be won. But finish wise, I think my top finish was about 150, and that was sort of in a year where I just bombed out of my head-to-head comps, and so I kept playing the game essentially. So I guess I play classic until head-to-heads are online, and then I sort of just chuck it if I'm no chance at top 10 or anything. So 150, and then I think last year I got about a 4,000 finish, which it was so surprising with all those buys, and I mean with no buys and all of those trades, really fucked it up at the end and finished at 4,000. But Canberra Raiders fan who lives in Brisbane, and you guys support different teams and you live in Canberra, so go figure.
And mate, I was born in the year 1990. I don't know how I didn't end up a Raiders fan, but anyway.
Mate, that was time.
No, mate, look, that's cracking. I didn't realise you'd actually cleaned up that much, and 150 overalls, nothing to, squirm about. So good stuff. I think you'd be more than qualified to be given a bit of advice in here, mate. And like I said, you're always sort of jumping in, put a bit of input on the BJ on Game Day chat. So we appreciate that. And it's good to have you on tonight, mate.
Mate. Same old shit, mate. I'm sort of glad that you've got an offsider this week. I can sit in the background and play video games like I usually do, like when you and Josh are talking shit for a couple of hours every week. So it's be good to be just in the background again this time, and save everyone my ignorant insights.
Absolutely. And welcome everybody in the chat. Hello Candos, hello Benny, hello Taylor, welcome guys. Anyone that's back again, how are you? Is anyone new? Welcome to the chat. Anything you want to talk about tonight, chuck it in there. I think we'll be running through some of our prop forwards and second row positions tonight. So anyone that saw the show last week, we had an S through to F tier ranking system. So we're doing the same again this week. Running through the top 15 or so most expensive front rowers and second rowers, giving them a bit of a ranking, having a bit of a chat, and then we'll also have a chat about a few of the guys that aren't in that top 15 cash-wise. And Ados, you might be able to provide a bit of insights on some of those sort of mid-range guys that might be, looking to bring a bit of value this season, and some cheapies that might be on the radar, although they're dropping like flies at the moment. That's not helping.
No, well that's it. We've had Blore go down. And today I think everyone saw on the pages, 8 weeks. So I think that puts a line through him big time. So there's a 200k out the door, and I think everyone would have had him in their team. So everyone's had to probably change it around a bit, I think.
Yeah, it's a stinker, that one, and obviously not the props or forwards, but Turbo, big news coming out of Manly camp. Looks like he'll miss the first 4 rounds due to a hamstring issue, a new hamstring issue. So it wasn't the original hamstring that's been giving him grief. Thoughts on that one, boys?
I fucking picked it.
Mate, I tell you what, there'd be a rule if I was a club and I owned Turbo, I'd be like, you lie down, and then we'll carry you to the field to play, mate.
They got to get that guy bionic hamstrings or something like that. Like, fucking put some titanium in there or something.
Yeah, I mean, they're at the point where they're probably going to sign a backup fullback. Like you get 15, 17 games a year, mate. Like if you he's definitely.
Well, that's the question. What do you think Manly will do? Do you reckon they'll move Garrick back to the back, or?
Yeah, I think it'll be Garrick.
Yeah, I mean, there's some murmurs that Schuster could go there or whatever.
Does that
Garrick's
make Garrick a possibility? Because he'll kick if he's starting. Does that make him a possibility?
Well, I reckon you're probably spewing a little bit if you're looking at Cherry, because I think there was a bit of a chance Garrick wasn't even going to be in the side, which meant there was a good chance Cherry might have kicked, which would have added a bit of value to him there. But now with this, he'd be Garrick's all but, I'd imagine. So. Yeah, look, not good for Turbo. I can't believe it. I think, this guy is sort of fast going to be one of these guys. If these injuries persist, it'll affect his sort of status. He could potentially go down as one of the, big call, but one of the best ever. But these injuries are starting to get a bit of an issue for him. If he can't sort this out, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, once they get the hammies, and you see that in Moylan and that as well, that they have a tendency to just do them over and over again. And, I don't know how they rehab over at Manly, but he's not coming. It's like the first time he runs, when he comes back, he redoes them. So what are you going to do?
And the footage that was released, I mean, I don't know exactly when that was from in terms of timing, but that wasn't a good look for him either, having a sprint race with his mate along Manly Causeway or whatever it was.
Yeah, getting smoked as well, though.
He did. His mate wasn't. Do you know who that was in that video?
I don't know.
He was quick though. Jeez. Yeah. Anyway, before we jump into it, you got the BJ on Game Day group code up there as well, guys. So if you haven't jumped into that, please do. 6292946. It's starting to fill up, folks. I think there's possibly around 100 already in there. So absolutely love it, guys.
I just realised my mic had fucked out again. I'd been trying to talk to you cunts and thought, what are these guys talking over me? I was going to say they did interview the bloke that raced him, and apparently he was just some bloke out for a drink, and he saw Turbo and he thought, I'll challenge him to a race. It's just some random. They did interview him, and as I said, or as I was trying to say, the official line is he slipped in the shower and did it. So he either slipped in the shower or pulled it doing a running race while he was out on the piss. Either excuse is fucking ridiculous.
I mean, geez, you're pulling a Hemi in the shower. What are you doing in the shower, Turbo? Dead set. Anyway,
tonight's about forwards.
Let's jump into it, boys, shall we? We'll have some paraphrasing as well from the doctor's diagnosis for the front rows as well. So I'll chime in to give some insights from the doc, Candos.
Speaking of the doctor, are we going to get Dr. Kando in on the show as well at some stage, or?
Look, if he's willing, more than happy. As I said, I think over the Ados will probably start the trend here, and there might be a bit of a domino effect. More than happy to shake it up, especially while Joshie's MIA. If anyone is keen, whether it's Candos or Big Ted or Shayna or whoever it'll be.
I know that one Taylor Jane has been asked a couple of times that she wants a regular segment. I don't know if we can give a regular segment, but
if that's what the people want, that's what the people will get, and we can have a chat to Taylor as well. We'll give her a run through and we'll see what happens. But tonight it's all about ADOS. So let's jump into it, boys, and let's make a start on the prop, shall we?
First up,
do it.
Once again in random button mashing order, Tavita Pangai at 616.
Take it away, Ados.
200.
What are you thinking of TPJ this year, mate?
Yeah, if I'm looking at him just for this year, I think he's probably an AB. I think he's definitely an A, bordering on a B for me. The guy's a weapon if he stays on the field. We all know that. It's just whether he's, fucks it up like he's done his whole career, really. It was actually good to see that it looks like he's starting at 13 in this game coming up on the weekend, and I think I had him in my team in one of the recent drafts, and I had to sort of downgrade, and I went to somebody else, but he was definitely a pod for me. I think if you can't have Haas, I think in that Broncos pack, the next best thing is Pangai.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd probably agree with you, mate. And the duality really helps this year. There seems to be not as many, top line guys with that dual status. So that might actually be a big positive for him as well. I mean, I'm really interested to see what role he plays under Kevy as well, Ados. I personally think he'd be one of the most devastating edge-back roles in the comp if that was the spot he was given. But from what I've heard from Kevy, he'll be playing in the middle. So I don't know whether that'll affect his minutes. I mean, he could easily play 80 on the edge. But I just think Brisbane have got so many forwards in that pack this year. I know they're a team that's struggling, but they do have a lot of depth in their pack. So
I think at 6'16", he's a worry as in the front row rotation. If you can get him on an edge, he's a weapon.
And I must have a quick look at last year's stats. He only played 2, 4, 6, 8, like not even 10 games last season, believe it or not. Like I didn't actually even realise that. So, he could really be raring to go. And if he's had a good pre-season and he's got his head switched on, he could be a really big pod to start the year because he can just explode. He's an absolute handful. So you're happy with that ranking, mate? Good start. What do we got next, folks?
Oh, fuck. Don't make me try and pronounce it. Moiki Fotuaika.
Mo Sizzler.
Fotuaika.
Oh, fuck. Every time I do it, I'm fucking afraid I'm going to do a Moylan. Mofo.
Yeah, look, Mo's an interesting one this season. I think he's been a bit of a go-to in that Titans pack. He's still pretty young, believe it or not. I didn't actually realise how young he was, but he was pretty good at times last season. He didn't get a heap of minutes, but by the back end of the year, he was playing at least 60 minutes and scoring really well, averaging a point per minute. And as I said, getting 60-plus minutes, which means he was pumping out 65-plus sort of to finish the year. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one, obviously, with the signing of Tino there and David Fafita. I know Fafita's out on the edge, but, someone else is probably shifting in as a result. And I think they lost... what was the other bloke that went to Parramatta? So, I mean, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, in terms of whether you could start with him for his price. There's probably some possibly better options out there at 530 odd K. I'd be probably putting him around that's upper C to start the year. I know he's got plenty of potential, but there might be some concerns with a couple of those new signings you might want to have a look at first before you get him in. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think last year, he was a figure in that pack, but particularly towards the end of the year. And, with the big names that go in there, you can only estimate that he's going to be, he's going to regress slightly, I would think. And, at that price, I think he's priced, probably overs would be my guess.
Yeah, agreed. And, I mean, like I said, he's still young, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. They also signed Herman as well, so... Yeah, you'd have to be a little bit of a buyer beware with him. Don't know if you could start with him, but definitely don't knock him. I think he'll be a player of the future, and I think he played Origin, I think, as well, didn't he? He made his debut for Queensland last year, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he did.
I don't think Mofo got in, did he? But he must have been around the borderline anyway.
Anyway, so yeah, happy with that one, Bogues. You got any thoughts on Mofo before we move on, apart from not being able to say his name?
No, fuck the Gold Coast. I try not to pick any players from him.
Origin?
Josh Papali.
Oh, here we go. This one will hit close to home, mate. What are you thinking on Big Papa this year, mate?
Look, I think that Big Papa is a steady buy for people. I'd rate him up in that high B, to A sort of region, similar to a TPJ. You know exactly what you're going to get from Papali, but he's sort of weirdly, for a front rower, he goes on runs, and if you get him when he goes 6 weeks and he scores 4 tries. He's a big try scoring front rower. And he looks lean because he did that boxing match. Maybe he starts a little faster this year, but he is traditionally a bit of a slower starter. I just think this year I can't touch any Raiders forwards other than someone at CHN's value, because there's just too many mouths to feed. You got someone who is like rep when they're fit, in Ryan James, that may not even get a start in the team, and we got lots of middles and lots of people who can go middle and edge, and I think that Papali's going to sort of be a little bit Lolo, like they're going to manage his minutes, and I think they don't need him as much,
Yeah, and he isn't cheap. Like, he's still pretty premium. Like, he's not 600k, but he's high mid 500s, so he's almost, I wouldn't call him a slow burn, he's obviously not a cow, but he just sort of plods away, and like you said, he goes on those little purple patches where he's just got attacking stats all through him for a while. But otherwise from that, if he's only getting, he's probably playing max 60 minutes at best. And to start the year, I know the boxing, like you said, he might be a little bit fitter, and even Paulo's pretty interesting in that respect. But, he could start the year and only pump out 50 to 60 max if he doesn't have any attack in him. And if that's the case, he's probably going to drop a bit of coin, and he's not exactly good value for money.
Yeah.
Next up, Paul Vaughan.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, actually, this year. He's probably, years gone by, I think a couple of years ago, he probably had a breakout year. He made Origin. Supercoach-wise, he was absolute gold. I'd have to have a look at what his average was, but he's an interesting one. He's not exactly cheap, but he's also not, he's probably, he's still pretty pricey. He can play decent minutes, but again, I have no idea what that Dragons pack's going to look like. So, again, you probably couldn't start with him, I don't think, but he might be a bit of a watch. I don't know why he lost his Origin spot, to be honest. It's just a ranking, I don't know. What else are you reckon about Vaughan this year?
Yeah, I think that he's probably a leader in that pack now, probably. And I think that you may see him try to stand up and be the leader. That's probably your best hope for him. But I mean, many people are picking, the Dragons for the spoon. I personally am. And I just don't see, there's more value, I think, in someone like Welch and Ben Murdoch-Masila. They're going to go up. They're priced unders, and I don't know what you're going to see from Vaughan. Minutes, and it's a new coach. Do we know how he's going to be coached by Hook? But I think 5-13. Would you prefer him or Tino? That's the questions.
And it is an interesting one, and I'm even looking at someone like Twal. Like these guys, out of all those guys, Twal's probably got the lowest ceiling, but yeah, I don't know. For value for money out of those guys, you consider Tino's duel as well. You're probably leaning more towards someone like Tino, potentially. I mean, he's got really good PPM, Vaughan. He's at 1.16 last season. So, if he was getting 55 minutes and he's pumping out nearly 1.2 points a minute, he's looking real healthy. But, he might be a watch. Obviously, a few of these guys are just so awkwardly priced, which sucks. And they're probably going to be, much better draft pickups. If you're playing draft, you're probably going to be more likely to swing to these guys, and they're probably going to be hanging around a little bit late. So, Classic going to be a bit hard. I'd probably put him at C just because you still don't really know exactly what's happening with his role and his minutes. There's probably going to be a few of these again, Bogues, but he might be a bit of a watch. Like I said,
middle
Ados
of the road back again.
could stand up. he could stand up and be counted this season, and maybe he wants that sky blue jersey back.
Speaking of Twal,
Twal, yes. What are your thoughts on him, Ados?
Yeah, I mean, I love Twal. I mean, he's somebody that, there's players that you can just go to the bank on and you just know that what they're going to put in each week. He does have a little bit of the meat and potatoes about him, but he's a rig, and he goes out there, he makes his tackles, he doesn't miss many, and he just plods his runs. Like he's like just a slightly better, to watch version of Aiden Tolman. And I like his duality as well, and I think if you're looking at someone ownership wise like Tino, I think that you can see Twal probably commanding as many minutes. He's got the duality, and he's going to be less owned. So it could just come down to things like who's playing the first buy. Around that price point, but I'd be happy to own Twal if I was at the options that we've got around 500k. I think that he's a decent shout.
Yeah, absolutely. And the doc sort of said similar, mate. I think he's just got that, meat and potatoes, bread and butter, tackles, runs. That's what he offers. He doesn't have that ceiling in him. He doesn't have, he's not going to break the line or score many tries or anything like that. But, I think it's not too high risk. I think for what his price is, he could do a job. I mean, I've got some questions about the sign, like Tamau's side there, and I think someone else. I can't even think of it now. But I suppose there's been a couple injuries now as well. Musgrove looks like he'll miss a couple of weeks now. So he might feature heavily minutes-wise. I think he's a pretty fit bloke, but I'm still really on the borderline with him. I really want him. I like the fact he's dual, but I know he's just not going to offer a great deal more at probably 70 max, but I think I'd be happy if he's sort of pumping out a 65 average, to be honest. So, what are you rating him, Ado? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think Twal is probably a B, B into C. I think he's above Mo and Vaughan, and probably just below Papali and Tavita. I think.
Yeah. No, good call.
JFH.
Yeah, look, he's another interesting one as well. Again, another guy I'm a big fan of. At times his performance on the field doesn't always correlate to Supercoach points, but he also has these games where he just goes off and he plays 70 or 80 minutes, makes 50-something tackles, just massive hit-ups, and he just doesn't stop. There was, times last season where I don't know if he was just being managed for the workload and they were trying to sort of save him for finals, but he just got pulled pretty early, only played 40, 50 minutes, and as I said, I know it was more at the back end, I think, from memory. But again, another guy I'm a big fan of. The duality helps. Again, the price isn't too bad. He's sort of, I don't know, awkward, but I don't know. I'm thinking out of Twal. I really want to start Twal and JFH ADOS, but I don't know if possibly I'm a bit over-invested in the props if I go with both, and I might just have to go with one and then a few cheapies in the other three spots. But again, this guy's a guy that won't offer too much in the way of attacking stats. He's not going to score a heap of tries. He won't make line breaks or offload the ball too much. But he's pretty solid with your meat and potatoes, so to speak, mate. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably similar in views on him. I do one thing that pisses me off about Fisher Harris is that sometimes he goes on a run of games where he just doesn't score as well as you'd hope. Like when you look at these guys around 500 and 5 to 600, you kind of their floor is not as low as his. Even a Papali, he doesn't have the floor of a Fisher Harris. So you do know that just the way that Ivan coaches, and sometimes he just he'll play 70-minute games and then all of a sudden he's playing less minutes. They seem to want to manage him for a couple of games. So there's these certain coaches, and it's the thing that worries me a little bit about Twal as well, is you've got these sort of cowboy lunatic coaches and I think Ivan's got a bit of that in him, and I just worry about how he uses Fisher Harris sometimes. If you know what I mean, I think that you can worry sometimes with him. But yeah, I mean, when he is on and playing 70 minutes, you can rely on him usually to bank out a good score. It's just how much can you rely on him, you know?
And I mean, obviously, Tamau moved on, mate. They've got Leo to their young Spencer Linu. They signed Eisenhuth. I'm not entirely sure. Yo's probably still going to play in the middle again. I don't think he'll find himself on an edge unless they have a few injuries. You got Martin and Kikau. Got Capewell there as well now if there's a back row issue. So I will be interested to see what sort of role he plays, and if he's only going to play mid 50 minutes, he might not be the great buy for the price. He is only about a point per minute, but yeah, have to have a look. If he's getting at least sort of 60, 65, you'd have to have a serious look at him. But like you said, Ivan's just so unpredictable. He's
last year
killer.
Yeah, last year he got some 50s and some 40-minute games, and he had some scores. He had a 40, he had a 28 in there. So for somebody who you're probably picking him in front row. You'd be devoed if you got a 28 out of the front row.
Especially for his price. Like early on, if something like that happened. I mean, last year it's funny, right? He played 80 minutes in the first game and then didn't play 80 again all season. So you'd be baited straight away if something like that was to happen again. But yeah, I mean, the other thing we haven't really mentioned with the forwards, Ados, and it might not be as relevant for the props because they have less, I guess, of that tack. There's a handful there, like Papali's a bit of an exception to the rule, maybe TPJ as well. But the draw probably doesn't matter too much with these guys where it's just bread and butter. Like you said, it probably only comes into effect when you're sort of thinking about whether they have that first bye or not, and or whether they're going to play Origin. So probably don't have to worry too much about the draw with these sorts of forwards because it's obviously doesn't matter as much because they're still going to rack up probably the same points most weeks.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a bad start. I mean, they do hit Melbourne in round 3, but they start off with North Queensland and Bulldogs, So a lot of the sort of popular talk this year is the balancing of cash generation to fast start. And, you would expect that if you took a punt on Fisher Harris, at least in the first 2 games, you're probably going to see the best you see from him, to start the season against those 2 oppositions. So it could be a pod move, but in the same sense, I think there's better buys.
Weddy's rating, fellas?
Upper C, maybe C, B, like lower B.
Middle of the
least,
fucking
C.
Roadhampton.
I mean, just because of his price, you may be putting him just standalone C because there's still that inconsistency in him and a bit of unknown, like most of them. Maybe slightly.
You mentioned him earlier, but Matty Eisenhuth?
Yeah, he's another interesting one. I mean, haven't looked at him classic-wise at all, but he is a guy. I mean, he's just moved over from the Tigers, and there were times last year where he really did a job for the Tigers. If they had someone out or whatever, Twile was missing for a while there. He can play big minutes, and he can get through a heap of work. I mean, we're talking about JFH being affected by someone. This is the kind of guy that could affect him. And, for some strange reason, I see Cleary as the kind of coach that will give this guy consistently maybe 60 minutes, and he might juggle Fisher Harris between the 50 to 70, depending on the workload week to week. But yeah, this guy, he's interesting. I don't think you can go near him for the price to start the year. He does have that duality between second row and front row, which is a massive bonus. But again, coming into a new side, I think he was a Panthers junior or something like that, or he has been in the Panthers system before. But yeah, will remain to be seen what his role is. He might fill that Jimmy Tamau sort of role, can play lock. Whether that means, if Kikau's not playing 80, you see Yo push out and maybe a few of these guys eating a few minutes up the middle. But Classic, I don't think you can start with him. He's probably C just because, again, don't know what he's going to offer. But yeah, it's one of those sort of random ones.
Yeah, I think he's got potential. Like what I was saying about old Fisher Harris. Last year you got Eisenhuth with a low score of 43 and a high score of 94. So he really doesn't bang out a bad score, but it all is dependent on minutes. And I mean, he's not even going to start. He's going to be he's going to come off the bench. And you think he'll probably I think he could warm into minutes as the year goes on, would be what I would think. But he wouldn't be a start for me in Classic. But I think if you're picking him up in draft, I think you know he could be someone handy to stow on the bench if he works into a role.
Absolutely, I agree, mate.
All right, that was a quick one. Aiden Tolman.
Oh, jeez. I think the doc. Let me see what the doc sees. Had some words about old Tolman.
I bet he is.
So it was in top of the rankings of front row last season somehow. Probably went a bit under the radar in that regard. I mean, in years gone by, he's been a gun, hasn't he, Ados? Like, he had been one of those guys you could have picked, and he churned through the work. Look, he's moved over to the Dogs. He's got a good work rate, a bit over 1 ppm. For the price, you probably can't go anywhere near him. He is expensive. I mean, he's expensive for a reason based off how he went last year, but you know, he doesn't offer too much. If some of these other guys we're talking about don't offer attacking stats, Tolman definitely doesn't, although I think I remember him scoring a try last year and a couple of those other guys we just talked about didn't. But yeah, probably looking like he might be a better draft guy. But yeah, I think for that sort of price, you couldn't look at him.
Yeah,
might be a bit harsh on him, but
yeah, it's a premium price, and going over into that Sharks team, he's going to start, you'd think, from the bench. And you know, everyone's buying Fafita, aren't they? Because they're a bunch of dickheads, really. But I mean, he's looking fitter, and he's gonna probably get a few more minutes, you'd say, this year. And I think Tolman's going to be good for Cronulla. I think he'll be a good addition for Cronulla because you can rely on him. But yeah, wow, he's priced. He's had a bumper year last year. He's priced accordingly. So if anyone started with, I'd love to see what his ownership's at now.
yeah, and I, like you said, he's not getting value out of his price. If you're picking him up for that price, you need him to start well, and he's probably you're leaving him there for a while. He's not going to play Origin or anything like that. But I mean, yeah.
With his minutes, you might as well just buy Murdoch Masilla for nearly 300k cheaper. Who's going to start edge back row and at least play, what, 50 to 60 minutes?
Yeah. Where are you ranking him, Ados?
Well, I mean, I think he's... if we're looking at him for this year, I rank him a C. You know, I just think he's not. You're not going to get the value for 572 out of Tolman. Yeah.
That's probably fair. Like, he'll probably do a job for you in draft, and he'll be solid, Mr. Reliable. But I couldn't start him in Classic. Definitely not.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at how we've got the board here, you've got some players up there like Tavita, Papali, Twal. They're all big parts of their pack, you know. And I think your Eisenhuth, you know, Mo and Tolman, they're not quite the big boys in their pack, you know. So if anyone's going to suffer, it's going to be them on minutes. Yeah.
Geez, mate, you've provoked a few in the chat with the Fafita remarks. You got Taylor's saying it's awkward. She's got Fafita. Whistle's saying Fafita will be broken with the pace of the game. His knees won't be able to handle it.
Look, I'll clarify my thoughts on Fafita. Is everybody watches him play this Indigenous versus the All Stars, and he can get up for that game because he's really passionate. And you see it when he plays for Tonga, and he got up and he had a bloody good game. Like, he really did. He looked good out there, no strapping on the knees. But can you see him playing 20 plus rounds, do that every week with those knees?
No.
And I think that, you know, in a team, they bought a Tolman because Fafita he's not up to it anymore. Yeah,
I think a bit of the turning of the guard, unfortunately. He was a guy, you know, it was first pick sometimes in a few years before that. It's almost a little bit sad, but I think, you know, he's won his comp. He's on big money. He's what, 31, 32 now, I think. He's just such a big boy, and like Whistle sort of said, that the pace of the game now, you can't you couldn't be asking too much from him. I know he's not exactly cheap, but he's also not, a price where he's just an automatic chuck in there. There'll be plenty that probably start with him, and he might do a job. He'll get a few offloads at times and create the odd attacking stat, but I don't think I could start him. If you're looking at guys like, Lodge or, like I said, Murdoch, Masilla or Leota and guys like that who are cheaper that might be way more consistent.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Copping off Kando in there. He's saying a bench forward priced at top dollar ranked as a C. Come on, boys. I think he's referring to Tolman or, sorry, Kando. But
Are you starting with Tolman? Are you, Kandos? Will he be featuring in your side? I mean, you could put him on the upper side of C, but come on.
No, I think he says he should be lower. I think that's
really?
what he's saying. Because he's a benchy,
He said to rank him as Z.
Hey, Tolman won't be. Will it be Eisenhuth? Maybe.
Either way. All right, fellas. Regan Campbell-Gillard.
Oh, RCG.
I gotta say, his Mo is S class.
For a start, what's all of these fucking props around this 500k?
It's really hard to pick props this year. I did notice that when I was picking my team.
There was a period here last year where this bloke just went on an absolute rampage for about 6 weeks, I think it was. He just sort of exploded out of nowhere. I can't recall if there was some injuries or what was going on at the time, but just having a look now, from about round 7 till 13 or so, he petered off a bit after that. He just exploded. He went from scoring mid 40s to he went 90, 91, 64, 77, 82.
Yeah, I think Big Spud Mark Carroll started ripping into him, didn't he? And said you're playing with no guts and get out there and rip in this size of you, and started even training him or something. So he picked up, I think, after that.
Yeah, and then Spud must have stopped talking to him because he petered off massively after that.
Yeah, along with his team.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hello to all you Eels fans.
Yep, I wonder if Benny's in there, be loving that one.
Steam coming out of his ears now at that comment.
Yeah, so I don't think you could be looking at someone like this just because he's possibly just going to have those 40s in him. I don't know what's going on. I haven't looked too closely at the Power Pack this year either. Have they signed any props or anything, Ados? I can't think off the top of my head. Fine.
I mean, they bought that lunatic Hipgrave from the...
Yeah, that was the one from the Titans I was thinking, actually.
And no, I don't know.
I think Kane Evans moved on. He was there as well. So, I mean, you never know, but I don't think there's value in him at his price. You'll get a good look at him if for some reason he's playing, 60 minutes plus. You might be starting to have a bit of a watch on him. But again, just because of what happened last year, he went from 40 minutes, 50 minutes to then play. He went like 70, 60, 80, 60, 70 minutes, just crazy stuff. And then he petered off again. So I can only assume there was some sort of injury there that I just can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I couldn't start him. Even if I had a second team, he wouldn't be in there. So I'd be putting him on, low C, D, just because we're starting to clog up that area. I mean, he does have potential, but I don't.
Yeah, I give him a C, D. The way he plays, it seems, I don't know, in a weird way, like he's emotional. And it just he doesn't give you any confidence. I think with the minutes, but you can just see him going off the boil again. And not putting it in. If there was if Mo counted for points, I think he's a BC. But give him a CD because I just don't think that you're going to have confidence having him starting with him in your team,
Yeah, no. Fair call. Moving on, Bugs. What else we got? How many are we? 3? 2, 4, 6, 8. Not even 10.
Yeah,
jeez.
Slow going tonight.
Big Marty. He is an interesting one, I reckon.
Also floating around that 500 grand mark, so.
He is. Look, I'll see what the doc's diagnosis is on this one. So he's now the number one prop at Manly with the exit at AFB, and he could potentially see a bump up in work rate as a result of this, possibly. He is a bit limited though. His ceiling can be a bit limited due to him not playing the big minutes. But he's probably not a bad call for his price. At 530k, like I said, we've got guys like your Fisher Harrises, your Twiles, your Tinos. Around that sort of price, is he one of the better options of those guys around that price, Ados?
Yeah, I mean, everybody sort of knows in the years gone by that when AFB's out, you can play and buy Marty Takau because he steps up. And yeah, I mean, I've really got a consideration for him this year. I know Manly's got a bit of a tough start to the year, but I mean, I see Marty. He's just one of those offloading sort of, the same sort of model as TPJ, bends the line, and I've got a lot of time for Marty. I think there's value at 531,000 as well.
Yeah, mate, and that offload's a good one as well. He gets that arm going nearly every time he runs the ball. So, yeah, good shout. And I think, if I'm unsure of a guy like Fisher Harris, this is a guy that's like a straight swap that I'd probably have a bit more confidence in for some strange reason, even though he takes someone's head off every 6 to 10 weeks at some stage. But, yeah, good shout. Where are you putting him, you reckon?
Yeah, I think he's probably up there with Twal. I think a bit of value, a bit of a B, C, sort of B. Yeah, probably a B for Marty.
Yeah, happy with a B, I reckon, for Big Marty.
Sorry, fellas. Just going to grab it again.
Bogues, have you got any thoughts on anyone like Marty this year? Had a look at anyone like Marty? I know you're a fan of the big boppers.
I was thinking about him, and to be fair, with the prop fours, because they are so also similarly priced, as I said, it's a tough pick. So at the moment I've got Twal and Fisher Harris, but it'll probably change half a dozen times before the season starts. So yeah, it'll probably be Tapau at some stage.
Sweet.
Next up, Payne Haas. Now we're starting to get into your higher end. Missing the first few weeks because of being a naughty boy.
Yep.
Well, and I think now I haven't heard an update since, but he hobbled off training a few days ago, or maybe a week or so ago. I can't recall. I don't know if it was anything was confirmed, or I don't believe it was a syndesmosis. Have you heard any mail on that, Ado?
Yeah, I mean, I think they said it was an injury that was going to be well and truly on track when he's due to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So not a struggle, not a bad one, but I think they're keeping it pretty tight-lipped.
Well, I mean, injury aside, I think the interesting thing is we've already heard he won't play 80 minutes. So I think Kevy's come out and said he's not going to be playing that sort of role this year. So you can expect to see him probably play a quality 60 minutes at best. And to be honest, I think that's a good thing. I think there was times last year where he was playing 80 where he was missing tackles and just
let some tries.
He wasn't
through.
in it.
Yeah, let some tries through out of just tiredness. I think he had to undertake too much for that pack last year.
It's funny, right? Like, for all the credit, looking at his stats now, he doesn't have a whole heap of negative stats looking at Supercoach stats, but I'm sure he missed more tackles than.
Yeah, it's because he grabbed thin air a lot of times, so there was no missed tackle. Yeah, but
I can't remember how many replays I just saw him grabbing air. Someone running straight through the middle.
He's still a consistent scorer, though. I'm looking to pick up Haas later in the season once I've banked a bit of money.
Oh yeah, I mean he's on everyone's hit list.
It definitely, like, he's priced at what was his average, 70 odd last, 75. Sorry, so he's a high price, and I can only assume when he comes back, it might take him a little bit to get in the groove, especially if he's got an ankle injury. I mean, he might not. He's the kind of guy that's just got a motor for a big man, but you'd have to think he's probably going to take a little bit of a dip in price. The interesting will be is what will be the price that you grab him. Is it, is 600k cheap enough? If you're getting him for 600k, is that, you're getting value out of him there? I mean, break evens and how he starts the season will probably determine a bit of this as well. I'm not suggesting for any minute he's not relevant anymore or anything like that, but I think it's a good thing for him to be playing 60 minutes and watch him on the return, because he'll be one of the top props to finish the year 100% again, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get someone like a 400, like imagine a Welch, and he goes, if I'm not on Welch anymore now that I've seen him on the bench, but just hypothetically, pre-Origin he gets himself up to 550, and you get Haas, down to 620. You got to just flip the go switch right from Origin onwards, and. He's going to be someone that you take for the run home post Origin, I reckon. Would be my guess.
And look, how old is the kid? I think he's 20, 21 years old. Like, it's pretty scary to think he's still just a kid. Imagine in the next few years he's just going to keep getting better and better, which is pretty crazy.
Yep.
Where do you rank him, fellas?
Well, he's top of the pops when it comes to a front rower. He's the best. He's an S.
Yeah, you'd have to put him in S. I know he won't start the year and he's expensive and whatever, but, that aside, I know we might rank McInnes as an F as a result of that sort of thing, but once he's back, he'll probably have a little bit of a dip and then he'll be probably must-have. He'll be scoring that well.
Yeah, it'll be him and then a good amount of points in average down to the next prop, I'm sure, once he's up and running.
Yep, sweet.
Daniel Saifiti.
DSAF, yeah. Look, my boy, I'll be honest, I was a bit surprised by what he did last year. I didn't see this coming, and I really didn't know he had it in him. He was absolutely massive for us last year. He was probably one of our best players all year. He played, he didn't play huge minutes, but his PPM is enormous. He can score tries. He's such a handful with the ball as well. Guys struggle to bring him down. Like I said, for a big man, he churns through a fair bit of work while he is out on the field for probably 50-odd minutes generally. While he's out there, he's doing heaps. He gets that arm going. Again, close to the line, those crash balls, he's an absolute handful to stop. He was a bit plagued by injury through the mid to back end of the season. So he sort of finished the year a little bit slow, I reckon. So, I don't know. There might be, maybe there's a bit of value in him at 560. He's not cheap, but, you're probably looking at some other guys for the price. He's just sort of a little bit too high. Maybe if he was sitting around that 500k price, you could. I'm not sure entirely what the go is when you think now we're going to have possibly someone like Connor Watson. From what I'm gathering, if he's got it in to play 80, he'll probably play 80, whether that means he's rotating into hooker or something like that. We've signed Frizzell. We've got Fitzgibbon there, even though he's out for a bit, which means Barney might find himself in the middle. So I don't know what that minute share is going to look like, and he can pump out a 40 at times. But
I think that he's the kind of player that he does get managed to play. You want to get what you get out of him game plan wise, and he came on last year. I remember watching. I was in a head-to-head with someone where he scored over 100. He just had a blockbuster game, and you're just like, wow. Like when he goes, he doesn't just bend a line back. He sends them skittling, So I mean, at his best, I think but he did have some minutes problems last year where he was 40 minutes a game, and that's a concern for that price bracket, 40 minutes, and I mean last year came out of nowhere. Ados, like he was averaging 40, mid-40s, give or take. Like he went 45, 49, 41 in average-wise the previous 3 years before last year, where he averaged 63. So he sort of had a breakout year. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes again this year, whether, that was a blip or he consistently might, try and establish himself as one of the better props in the game. I mean, didn't he got picked in Origin?
He did.
Clemmer. Yeah, so...
He did. So, and it's crazy to think when we've got Clemmer there, we've got DSAF, we've also, got guys like Barney and Frizzell, so, pretty good pack on paper.
Yeah, and they've got a good draw, and there's pros, and at 560, who's around his price? It's like TKO, and, so it looks like he's going to goal kick, and, I know that's who I've picked personally, so.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd be putting him like BC, Bogues. Just, he's got potentially, he had a good year last year, but maybe more on the C side of B. But, I think he could do it again possibly this year.
BC. There's a nice little gap for him in there.
Mate.
Oh, sorry, mouse is a little bit unresponsive at the moment. Josh McGuire.
What do you reckon, Ados? Take us away.
Yeah, Josh McGuire, I mean, last year he was someone that sort of went under the radar for me. I mean, I didn't know that he had gone so well before I sort of looked back at him. And, I mean, he's one of those ones, imagine having TPJ and Josh McGuire in your team. Like, you'd just be like, I could have both of them out for 6 weeks, He's just, he's got the grub in him. But, I mean, last year, he was what I was pointing out with old mate that's gone across to Penrith.
Eisenhuth, yeah.
Eisenhuth, yeah. He's low. He had a low last year of 46 and a high of 84. So you can bank on him. And at 564, I actually put him, sort of around that, Saifiti sort of ability. I think he's getting old though, and I don't really have much hope for the Cows. So he's a pass for me. But I would put him ahead of Daniel Saifiti just because he's got the duel. And I don't think he's got the low games in him. At least when he goes in there, he puts in. You do have the risk though that he'll eye gouge someone. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's gone. So he's a no for me. But there's better options.
I think as well, like he gets through a heap of work. His base is really, really good. If he could just somehow find an offload or something in his game, he could be really relevant. But
and I mean they've already come out and said they're gonna give Lolo less minutes. So Josh McGuire is played lock plenty of times. At rep level. So he could maybe see a little minutes uptake maybe, or the younger forwards. But there's potential that he's an old head and could stay on field and get more minutes. But yeah, it'd be gutsy to go him, I think.
Yeah, like you say, he's sort of in that weird sort of price where you're probably getting a bit more value out of someone maybe, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him average a 60 plus this year again. He averaged 64 last season, so there's nothing to smirk at. What else we got, Bogues? Oh, here we go. You just mentioned him, Ados.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about your man TKO.
Yeah, I mean, TKO is someone I like to watch. I like the tackle buster. I like the offloader. I like, I've seen him do some runaway tries. He looks like a beefy type David Fafita. He just busts people and they're just falling off him. And, basically at 562, when I'm looking at the other people there, Josh Papali, Tapau, I think Takiaho with the goal kicking just moves ahead for me, and I like the Roosters actually to start pretty well this year. So I think my views might change if he wasn't goal kicking, but all the mail and old mate assistant coach there said he's the kicker, so you'd imagine that you're going to get an extra 10, 12 points out of him, on kicks alone, and he's just somebody that he'll knock away points when he's on field. He's got that Supercoach friendly game. The cons are he is a little bit injury prone. He can go down, the big fella. And Robbo is one of those coaches that he does manage players if they've been injured or they're coming back from injury. So those are the worries. But I've got him in currently.
Yeah, I think value for money is possibly one of the best options to start in the front row. I mean, talking about him now, I'm thinking, geez, I haven't looked more at him. But, Kandos is similar sort of comments similar to yours, Ados, as well as possibly whether the goal-kicking role maybe finds himself out in the field a little bit more as well as a result of that. And they don't play the first bye, so he won't play Origin. You've possibly got a forward here that will average 65 plus with ease, if not more, with the goal-kicking. And you won't have to worry about him until round 17 or whatever it is, provided he doesn't get injured. So, yeah, I think he's a good shout with Cordner's out. I know it probably doesn't affect, the middle as much, but you never know that they're going to have to find a couple of leaders in that pack if Cordner's missing for a while. And
look,
he's a guy.
JWH is getting older, so how old is Takayama? I know he's younger, so, he's probably hitting, I think, his prime, if he can stay injury-free, to step up in minutes, hopefully. That's what the hope is.
I think he's possibly 28, 29 sort of age. So I think for a prop, that's pretty much prime time, isn't it?
Mm. So I like him. I go on another podcast occasionally, the SC Experience, and they trash him on there and say, no kicking, and that you always own him, and you hope for more out of him, and he never quite gets to where you want. That's their view on it. And for
I've just called him best pick of the props.
So where do you rank him? I've got him sitting at A there. Do you want me to leave him there, or do you want me to move him up to S?
No, I don't think he's an S, because there's too much to worry about. I think he's probably, an A down into a B, around with the Tavita and Papali. And you could pick Papali, and he could average more than TKO 5 rounds in, and Tavita could do the same, or Takiaho could go and average more than the both of them. It's just you always, when I'm going, will I go Josh Papali or Takiaho? This year, Takiaho looks like he's going to be kicking, and he wasn't kicking last year, so he's going to have more to offer this year. He's going to get more points.
Did he not kick at all when Flano was on last year?
I think he might have had a couple of kicks, but that's about it. Yeah, okay. I think it was.
And who's to say that Liam doesn't get hooked? I know there's some speculation about Liam kicking as well, and I probably agree. I think this guy kicks when he's on the park. But who's to say Robbo doesn't hook Liam within 2 or 3 weeks if he has a couple shockers anyway, and then he's got to be the first choice kicker when he's on the park. So.
Yeah, and I think that Robbo's smart like that. He's probably kind of like, I want Lamb just to concentrate on organising. He's going to be playing 7, isn't he?
Yep.
And
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think they're going to just go, this is our kicker, and when he's off the field, Lamb can just jump in and take over. But yeah, I think they're probably. I think they're planning for the fact that Lamb may not last the whole year. Lamb's had enough time to make himself an NRL career, and he just keeps getting hooked at a point. So.
Yeah. No, good shout, Ados. I like him this year. I might have to reevaluate after tonight. Damn it.
Aiden Fonua-Blake.
Yeah, look, I'll start off on AFB. I think he's a great player. He's probably got one of the best PPMs, I'd imagine, with just talking off the top of my head. I can only imagine. He's an absolute handful. He's got the offloads in him and all that sort of stuff. I guess the questions on him this year will be, I personally do think, and I've talked to Kendo a little bit about this as well, I think that Warriors pack is pretty stacked. I know they haven't signed him to go there to play second fiddle or something like that. I imagine they've signed him as, one of their premier forwards. But you got to think they still have guys like Toe who's going to play big minutes. Alicia Katoa can play big minutes. I know he's on an edge, but he doesn't need to come off. You got guys like Jazz in the middle there. Who else you got, Ados? Murdoch Masilla as well. I just feel like there's a heap of options there. You got JTB, a young fella who sort of debuted last year. I think looks really good as well. So I guess the price, you'd want to see how he goes. Last season he averaged probably that 55-minute mark, give or take, and he's one of those props who. He scored 140 at one stage last year, but he generally had like a 55 in him. He sort of probably only averaged 60 as a result of a couple outliers. So probably not the best call at 5:30. New club. He finished the end of last year injured as well. You're going to need him to be offloading and doing a heap while he's on the park because he doesn't play huge minutes. I personally wouldn't look at him. What do you reckon, Odo?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I don't mind him in that pack as I think he probably, he's got enough reputation, and I think even when I see a little bit of footage of him in the training and that he's a loud voice out there, and I think he's got a big role there. But one thing that I actually like to do when I look at past seasons of players is I take out their best score and their worst score and then divide the remaining games, because it just takes out, sometimes like in the case of AFB, he had a big 140 game. Now that is an anomaly for him, as well as he had an 18 game. He had an up game and he had a down game. So let's get a little bit of a better look at what his average is. And the average is obviously not as good if you take out that big game,
Yeah. And if we're talking about guys that are hotheads, here's another one that's probably captain of the hotheads potentially. You looked what happened in that game against Newey last year. He seems to not really give two fucks, and he's sort of one of those guys in the tackles. There's always niggle, or he's always carrying on a little bit. So there's a bit of risk with him in that regard as well, which isn't ideal when you're looking for someone that's gonna, at that price, you're relying on him to churn out.
Most people are saying the Warriors could make the 8 as a best case scenario, but we think maybe it could be a rough old year and a bit of a struggle. And I don't think he's got the temperament for if they're getting hammered in games, and I don't think he's got the temperament if it's on on the line. I think you're going from a Desi team, and Nathan Brown's a good coach. Don't get me wrong, I think personally, but he's not made for a team that's on the getting spanked. I don't reckon.
Yeah, and there'll be some big personality in AFB, so it'll be interesting to see how he manages a few of them in there. Sheck's last year as well, so yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that one. But couldn't start him. I'm putting him C at best, just because a few of those factors, mate. Like, to be honest.
Yep, I agree.
We've got to be close.
We got 2 more.
Clemmer's not there yet. That's the one.
Oh. David Clemmer.
There he is. Ado, what do you reckon of Big Clem this year, mate?
Yeah, I like Clem. He's the first person I sort of thought if I wasn't going to have a Haas, who's my premier, front rower. And I mean, I think that price, will show why he's into that sort of consideration. I like him. I like the way he plays, and Clem sort of seemed to start to work on an offload last year, and that excites you. That makes you look at him a little bit more. And I don't know if he's going to put that away, or whether he's going to be told to put that away. But from what I knew, they told him to do it. So I like him.
Yeah, I think the offload's a really important thing to factor in and consider, Ados, because it made a big difference to his score. If you go have a look at his scores last year, his offloads are averaging probably an extra 10 or 12 points per week, if not more at times. So, that turns a guy getting mid 50s to 60 up to a 70-point average.
Came 11th overall last year. He's bloody good.
Yeah, like a 67 average. That's massive as well. This guy isn't playing. He isn't playing 80. He's not playing 70 generally. Like, you're getting that 50, 60. Maybe the odd 65-minute game out of him. And when he's out there, you just love him because he is in everything. He'll take it, hit up every set. He'll make plenty of tackles in the middle. He doesn't miss much tackles either. But, yeah, I couldn't be too critical of anyone starting the year with him at all. I know he isn't cheap, but he isn't cheap for a reason because he had such a good year last year. He doesn't have a massive ceiling, but that said, with the offload in his game, he's pretty much averaging 70, which is massive. So that's why you're picking him. You're not picking someone like Clemmer because he's a try-scoring threat or creating that sort of stuff.
You pick him for last year, for round 6, 75, 75, 72, 67, 52, 102. He just goes on runs where you're just like, yes, I'm banking 75, every week from the bloke. He just... Yeah, he can go on runs where he averages 70 plus for 7-8 weeks straight, and that's what you want.
And to be honest, what is he? Not quite 600. So
592.
We last year I wouldn't actually even know because I never pay attention to this sort of shit. We have a higher salary cap this year, yeah.
Yeah.
and he's priced at a price that he pretty much sat at for most of the year last year as well. So he's not terrible. You might be able to. I hope he starts a little bit quiet and drops down to like maybe mid 500s. In which case, I think he'd be a great buy. But I couldn't be critical of anyone starting him, and he could be really
Where
good.
do you rank
pickup.
him, fellas?
I don't have a bad draw. I'd have him A. I'd have him as an A. I think he's probably more bankable than a TPJ and a Papali.
Mm. Yeah, I'd be happy with that.
Lucky last, Junior Paulo.
Big Junior Bugs, what do you reckon? You're a big Junior Paulo fan. What are your thoughts on Paulo this year?
He definitely done me good in the draft last year. I had him in my early teams until I sort of cut back a little bit and rejigged it. I am a huge fan of Junior Paulo, and I'll probably put him back into my team before the game starts, before the season starts. So I like him. I think Parramatta are going to do really well, and it's going to be off the back of off Parramatta's forward pack. So
yeah, I think my only problem with him, Bogan, is the minutes. I know, again, he's a PPM beast. He's sort of like 1.2 points per minute. He's got the offload. For a big man, he throws a great pass. He can create stuff off the back of his ball playing as well. He can draw, 3 blokes in, get the arm away, or throw a cutout ball and put a bloke through a hole. And he can, get the odd line rake and stuff like that.
He gets the big scores. He gets the big scores.
He can. He does have a ceiling on him, the big boy. But and the other interesting thing, I guess, to consider, which the boxing, he's probably going to be in pretty good shape. With the boxing match. If Papali is, I think Paulo is as well. So
he looks ripper. I mean, they said that coach told him last year that you're going to fall the way of the big front rowers that can't play in the speed of the game unless you shred down. And he looks like he's lost 30 kilos.
He looks really good, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He reminds me of looks-wise like that Solomon Hamono from back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, just a big, rangy, huge beast of a man. Yeah, a weapon. I think he's a good buy. And,
he never comes off second best. Blokes run into him, they're generally falling off him. So,
yeah, but I mean, you're right. The minutes are a concern because he can go 40s and below 40 some games.
I think as well, like, if Parramatta are a much better side when he's on the park as well, like, they need him. If he was playing, I know it's a big ask from a big boy like that, but, like, if he could just consistently play, like, 55, 60 minutes, he's a way different prospect, but he does randomly, like, play, 45 minutes and stuff like that. And, like I said, I know he's a big boy. Maybe this year he's slimmed down, so he's trying to play a bit more minutes out on the park and trying to do a bit more of that for Para. So it'll be interesting to see. I couldn't start with him for his price, but I couldn't be critical on anyone starting with him because he's just got the blow up potential. Para have a really good start to the year as well, Ados. This is one of those guys that are worth mentioning that could benefit from a good draw, even though he's a prop. So
yeah, Bulldogs, Gold Coast, Broncos, Manly. Not a bad start to the year for opposition. Yeah.
Where do you put him, fellas? So we can move on to the second rows. We're not even halfway.
Yeah, I put him above TKO, Papali, and that. I put him just below Clemmer, just on.
Oh, would you? Yeah, I'd be putting him like that B sort of class easily. Maybe erring on the side of A, but yeah, somewhere there's fair.
Yeah, I mean, he came 16th overall last year, and he's priced at a 570. So in his 40-something minutes, he gets a lot of work done. And,
he does. It's quite amazing for the size of him.
And if you think that he's trimmed down, he'll get at least the same minutes, and he's got a nice early draw. So can't be the worst shout, I don't think.
Yeah. All right, so we've gone through all the premiums. Ados, is there any guys sort of mid to cheap that you want to mention, mate? I mean, there's a few here from Kando. I know we've been sort of going on for a while. I don't know what your schedule's looking like, and we've still got the back rowers to get through. But
yeah, I mean, I'll go nice and snappy. I mean, your ones that you got in mid price that that you would be thinking about are Murdoch Wasilla, where he's at 330, is he? I don't know.
Yeah, about that. Yep.
There's Lodge. He's who I've gone over. Murdoch Wasilla, 290. And I think he'll start. I mean, seeing how they were named the Broncos for this week's trial is probably optimistic in the favour of Lodge. I think he's a good second rower, a good front row backup if you're going to go with the premium. And who else am I seeing in there? You've got your usual suspects. You've got Waitika, and I think he's a good cheapie. But yeah, I mean, in your mids, see some people putting in that mad lunatic Hetherington. But I
there's
think
a few going him, isn't there?
Yeah, he looks like he could jag a start, but I just think Lodge is probably someone you can bank on for 50 minutes, and we know that he can play big minutes. Yeah, I don't know if the game might have gone past him, but I think at the price is right to have him in. And Murdoch Masila, you think if he's going to start in he's going to start in the back row, he's got to at least get 60 minutes, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting one. I know there's a bit of speculation about Tohu's fitness and even Elise Katoa. They're meant to be sweet for round one, but yeah, I'll have a really close eye on Murdoch Masila because he's got that duality. He's very cheap, and he's a little bit unknown. I think like a few years ago when he debuted or whatever, there was huge raps on him, and I think he did quite well overseas. And then when he came back and played for Tonga, he had a really good game. However many games he had a really good game at one stage, and I think he's got the offload in him, and he could be a bit of a handful if he's playing out on the edge. But again, like I said, just got no really decent idea of what the makeup of that Warriors pack's going to be. So, just going to be trying to probably have a close eye on him. There's a good chance I'll probably start with someone like Murdoch Masila just because other guys like Law and guys like that are just dropping everywhere. And
good shout.
Someone.
Good shout from Shockmaster. He said Leota from the Panthers is a good shout. He looks like he might start at prop when he's around the same price as Murdoch Masila, so he's got a good sort of looking game as well, Supercoach wise. Leota from the Panthers. And
keep yapping, fellas. I'm just going to go grab a bourbon.
Yeah, and like I was sort of like I was saying before, Ados, props are probably the hardest position for me this year. I don't know, like looked at Twile and Fisher Harris, and we're talking about guys like TKO and Tapau, who are obviously more premium. And then at the moment, I think I've got Leota and Lodge in there because I just think value for money wise, these guys offer it. Like Leota averages nearly 1.2 points per minute. Obviously, Tamau's moving on. He's a powerhouse. I think.
Yeah.
If he could get 50 minutes or something, like you'd have to think he's going to get somewhere in that at least, right?
Well, you'd think so, and
you'd think.
And this year, each year, Supercoach sort of lets you know where the value is, and this year we look at halfback and we go, it's dead zone, and up front it looks like we'll have some options in the 2 to 350 range, so. It could be the difference between you getting a To'o in your centre wing instead of a Fergie,
Absolutely.
So I think that you should entertain where the options are there, and it looks like there's some in the front row. So I wouldn't think that Moses Leota and Lodge, what do they get? They get like maybe 50 points or 45 in a low game, and you get Takiaho gets 65 in a good game. So you're losing 10 points for a couple of 100,000 less. So yeah, I think it's a good strategy.
Yeah, we'll see. I've still got absolutely no idea. I'm glad I've still got 2 weeks to sort it out. Some other guys, Dados, just quickly. I think plenty of people have been talking about Welsh, even yourself. You're having a bit of a look at Welsh, but you're a bit off him now, mate, after the trial. Names have been...
I mean, his name to come off the bench, and I mean, I even saw an interview with him where he said that he's more than willing to do. He's just a good bloke, obviously, and he says, I'll do whatever the team requires. And it seems like maybe he's going to come on for a bit of impact, or something. I don't know. He's starting off the bench, and I'm not going to start a bench forward. At least I know that Lodge and Takiaho are likely to run on. So Welsh is just out for me. And in the 400Ks, if he started, I would put him in. But I don't like seeing a benchy for 400.
And the last one, before we move on, being a Raiders fan, mate, what are you expecting out of Ryan James this year? Yeah,
I mean, look, he's got the pedigree, and I really think that I'd love to see him in the 17 personally, but I look at all the players, and I chat on Instagram and to Hudson Young, and we have lols, and I just see him as an up and comer. And what's James going to get? You got Papali and Louis went and played Origin last year. You got a lot of we got a lot of forwards, and I'd like to see James jag a spot in the 17, but how many minutes is he going to get?
So even with someone like CHN, obviously with what's happened with him and Horsburgh being dropped, and Bateman obviously moving on, I mean, I don't expect him to play back row, but he is the kind of guy that could play there at times. I mean, there's plenty of people questioning his fitness as well. He's had long layoffs with injury and that sort of thing. I don't know. I'm just not as off him as a lot of people seem to be. I don't know why. I
mean, look, he's got pedigree, and he's been in the past a good scorer. But that was Ryan James, who played 60, 70 minutes. And if he comes on for the Raiders, he's probably going to play 20 to 30. And I think he's going to be like that before half-time, and into the lead into second half type role, if he gets in the 17, because we're probably going to run Starling as a 14, and then you're going to have Horsburgh. You probably, you're not going to find a spot for him. You got Louis will probably start, and we're going to have
Amre Gula's sort of coming into the squad now a bit as well. Hudson's obviously probably going to be pretty established in there. Sutton's played a bit of a role last year as well. So
so I think he might just come in for us to rotate players in and out, and he's a low price. So if he's named for round 1 because there's no Horsburgh and CHN, I can understand people taking a punt, but I just think I see him more as a 20 to 30 minute player, and there's no guarantee that those two are going to be out more than a couple of rounds. That's what Ricky Stewart said. He never put a time frame on it, and he just said they're going to earn their way back into the team. So I
was wondering about that, what the go was with that, but if that's the case, it's Anyway,
I love to have a Raiders player in my team, and CHN was that man. But no Ryan James for me. I think someone like that Spencer Leilua, he looks like he's going to get an uptake in minutes, 218k. Even that Holler from the Cowboys looks like he might get an uptick in minutes. So I think their minutes are on the rise, and I just don't think the Raiders have enough to give to Ryan James.
Yeah, and just a couple quick shout for the doc as well. He's got Alvaro at 256k. Maybe he's got a role at St George there. Might be a better shout for a similar price to James. He's got Holder in there as well, so apparently he might be. There's some speculation that he's in for an edge at the Cows.
Maybe an edge.
Couple shouts there from the doc. So fair call.
Yeah, good shouts.
Anyway, enough of the big boppers, mate. I reckon we're moving on to one of my favourite positions.
Yeah, same.
Oh, how good are we going? Probably an hour and a half in now.
It's the long one tonight.
We'll go quick.
Jakey Turbo.
Well, I mean, before Turbo got injured, I was probably thinking he might be in for a year of old with the old Gerbo, but now I'm not entirely sure what to make of it. He was a weird one last year, wasn't he? He I don't know, like that ball playing became a real issue. He'd go to the line and throw a ball out the back so many times. I don't know whether the addition of not a genuine, but a more experienced half with 4 in there will possibly mean he's doing a bit less of that. He's not a bad price. I'm not sure on Gerbo this year, mate. What are you thinking?
I don't mind Gerbo. I don't mind Gerbo more deliciously if Turbo's in there. I think Manly's got a tough draw. No Turbo. I've got a line through him. But yeah, that's a very good point, and I've actually had someone mention that. Foreign, he's not going to have to be that go-between ball play the way that Hasler plays. Those props and 13s. So I think that he might have a bit more of a chance to run this year. And
obviously losing AFB, mate, as well. Sorry to cut you off. He's going to have to do a bit more of that in the middle work as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think he's the worst shout. I think he's at a good price, and he did last year. He just pumped along. He did a lot of that without Turbo, but I would have probably considered him if Turbo was in, and because Foreign's there, and I do believe that he'll play 6 I think he'd run more. So, but no, not for me.
No, so Taylor's going no more Turbo. So Taylor, if you haven't heard, Tommy Turbo's done a hemi. He'll miss the first 4 weeks at this stage. And Benny's saying Turbo's a D. He's a Tolman. So moving on. Look, I don't know about him.
He came 13th overall last year.
Can I hazard a guess where you guys are putting him?
Oh, look, I put him a bit higher than the C. I just think he got the pedigree. Maybe the B-ish in CB into P, maybe just.
I think he's a CB.
Yeah.
At 582.
Yeah, he's a good price. I think he's a good price. He's not a bad value pick this year, I reckon.
Low score last year, 44. High score, 94. That's good stats. Came 13th overall.
60s machine last year, so.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next, folks?
Up next is Angus Crichton.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know if he's S tier yet, but he's minimum A. I'm expecting a big year. I think he's a big price, and it's justified. He should play big minutes. He started slow last year, Crichton, but he is someone that, especially after hearing the news about Lolo, I didn't have him originally. He was a guy I was thinking I'll get to. But yeah, he was straight in for me once I sort of heard the news about Lolo not playing big minutes. He's got the base. He offers the attacking stats as well. Runs a good line, runs those really brave lines off the halves, and can find the try line, mate. So I am pretty set and forget on Crichton this year, to be honest, even at the price of $670.
Yep, he's an A definitely for me. Love the beard. He's got a beautiful beard going at the moment.
How good is it?
Oh, mate, I love it.
It's amazing.
And he, look, if I'm being honest, I wrote down my list last year of my first pick this year, and I had him down as my second pick. He was someone I was definite was on the rise and was going to have a bigger role at the Roosters. So I think he's worth every penny.
I'll never forget that year at South. Was it his first year at South? He just come on the scene and just was scoring tries and 100 pluses, and it was amazing. I really hope we never lose this guy to Union because he's great. So
I think he'll be the top scoring second rower is my guess this year. Top scoring second rower.
Yep, sweet. Let's do it.
Isaiah.
Look, no duality this year is a big negative to Isaiah. Obviously, last year with the dual second row centre wing, he was a really easy pick because he was playing huge minutes and he had a really good year. He was scoring tries and doing everything, but you could pick him in the centre wing. I think he had. I don't want to say anything stupid, but he probably had a career best year, and I can only imagine it was that correlated to his Supercoach points as well. He's a much different prospect with only that second row positioning, ADOS. I think at 612k, I haven't really looked at him personally. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I think the duality. I think even if you just think about it, you're like, it just pisses me off that I can't pick him in centre wing. But I mean, at 612, there's no way Isaiah Yo's making money. And I think he'll actually probably score well. I can't see him scoring poorly, but I just don't see why you would pick him at that price when you could get Maddo, Angus, and some of the others. You can't fit them all in, and I think there's better value. So I think he's probably overs on price.
I think the only positive that I saw last year out of him compared to previous seasons, he was one of those guys, Ados, as soon as there was an injury in the centres or something, he went straight in there. Whereas last year he seemed to stay in the middle, or I think he possibly, I don't know if he played edge or filled in at edge at times or whatever, but now that you got guys like Capewell, and they do have a bit of depth in those back positions, and we are seeing in the modern day game, coaches are deciding to run a guy that can fill a few of those backline positions. It is encouraging that he generally will now stay in the pack and he doesn't get pushed out to centre. So I think that's a positive. For the price, it's sort of a bit hard now that. And
I mean, everyone knows that Penrith, they performed well last year. They had a very generous draw, and they made it to the grand final. Fell one short, but they're not going to have such an easy draw this year. And I think that they're not going to perform as well. So you'd think that is going to affect all of their players a smidge.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair call. Teams will get up now. They had that run last year of what was it 17, 18, whatever it was.
Yeah.
They're on the radar big time as a genuine contender. So yeah, good point.
Where do you rank him, fellas? I put him as CD. Is that?
Yeah, that sounds good. In the
Tohu Harris.
There's way, Ados. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's at that price for a reason. Tohu's a great player. He's a dead set great player, and in the previous years, you'd say whoever leaves Melbourne and gets better or even holds the same sort of level, and I think he's actually done that. I thought he had a fantastic year last year. One of the things that I worry about Tohu is his bloody injuries. I worry about his body, and there's always rumours that he's playing injured. He looks like he's going to play 13, from all reports. But he's got Jazz on the bench, and then Jazz is going to come on and spell at 13, I think, personally. And you're paying top dollar for him, really. I mean, close to top dollar. So I think he's performed to above where I expected last year, and I don't think he's going to perform that high this year. I think the signings of like AFB, and if you're starting someone like Tavita off the bench, I think there's a few mouths to feed there as well in that pack.
Yeah, like you're paying a premium, aren't you? So you need him to be playing at least 80 minutes, and at times last year it varied more so towards the back end of the year. Like you said, I think Tavanga came back later on in the year, maybe middle, later, and I didn't think it affected him a bit. And obviously a new coach, who knows what sort of role. He may not want him to play 80 minutes, It really just does depend. So a little bit hard.
It's not a bad thought if you're I don't want to go Angus and Maddo because everyone's going to go there. You could go an Angus and a Tohu and save yourself a bunch of money. Not a huge bunch, but a little pile of money, and that he'll do a job if he gets the chance.
Could you imagine? Do you remember at Melbourne there was the odd occasion where it must have been during Origin where he would kick goals? Can you imagine if he got the goal kicking or something? I know Tavita Harris would probably get it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Could you imagine? Where are you putting him, BC?
Yeah, I put him above Jake Trbojevic, I think. I think he's about there and a slight bit better. But yeah, I worry about his body and minutes in that pack.
Sweet.
Cam Murray,
yeah. Well, I think he's the sexiest man in the league if you ask Dan and Cam.
Well, he's never met Jordan Ricky.
Yeah, well, he probably would have got a few fans after the weekend as well. Murray, yeah, I don't know what to read into this. Bennett tends to be a Supercoach killer, I reckon. Like, this kid could have played 80 last year. He probably could have played 80 the year before as well. Do you see him getting a bit of an upgrade in his role this year, Ados? Is he possibly going to see 80 minutes, do you think?
I think he's going to be starting at 13, and it's very rare that you see a 13 play 80 minutes. He could come in and move to an edge, I mean, and there's a lot of people saying that Jai Arrow will go into the front row rotation. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? Does it mean...
You got Sewer on one edge that'll probably play big minutes. I assume he'll probably play 80, and then maybe Kolomatangi on the other.
I mean, I like Cameron Murray. I like the way he plays, and at $5.99, just a tick under 600. But yeah, I do. I have that worry about Bennett as well. Last year there was all that talk about Liam Knight, and I got bloody lured into that. Howdy, Josh King. Fucking Liam Knight, that prick.
Fucking Liam Knight.
And he's going to start Murray at lock. I think that Murray is... I don't think he's going to drop too much in value. I don't think he's going to go up in value, and I think he'll score well. And he's not the worst buy.
I honestly think same thing, mate. If you're not looking at Angus and Crichton, Angus and Maddo, this guy's one of the next best options.
And I really like South this year too. So.
And he's got plenty of attacking stats in him. Like, he finds the try line, he's sniffing around the middle, he follows Cookie and runs off he just pops up in the right place. So I think, he's a good shout. We've got Taylor tossing up between Lolo and Murray. I think you'd have to go Murray, Taylor, just because Lolo will probably still be effective. We'll talk to him about him when he pops up, but with the reduced minutes, I think Murray's a better call at this point.
And he'd be lower owned too, so
Yeah, and then price wise, he's 40-50k cheaper possibly. So putting Murray at a BA, I personally think he could be one of these young guys that just keeps getting better and could be a really good Supercoach player in years to come, and has plenty of upside despite his price. I think he'd be a really good pickup this year.
Agree.
Next up is Luciano Leilua.
Lucy.
Wow, what a year he had last year. I don't know. In a pretty, the Tigers were pretty ordinary at times last year. He was a bit of a standout. For a big bloke, he can play 80 minutes and sometimes gets through a bit of work, and then he offers a heap in attack and stuff. He's got an offload. He can score tries. He likes to hit those holes close to the line. He's an interesting one, Ados. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was one of the silliest things that the Dragons ever did let him go. And who did they go for? Old mate back from the UK. Who's 100? Merrin.
Yeah.
I mean, Lucy, it was on the up, and I think that was reflected last year at Tigers. I think, in a bad team, he can hit a hole. He's great close to the line. They've moved him over to his brother's side, and I don't think that BJ is a good influence on his winger or the person inside of him. I think he's like Bart Simpson in the classroom, where everybody gets sunken into the hole around Bart Simpson. I think that's what you're going to get around BJ this year. So little brother is probably going to get influenced by his older brother. But look, he's 544, and I mean, imagine if you're running I'm running 3 sort of premium second row forwards, so I think he's a reasonable shout. If you're going to go Crichton, Murray, Luciano, or Crichton, Madison, Luciano, he's not the worst.
And I think sorry, go on, mate.
But I do think the Tigers, they're going to fight it out with the Dragons spoon. They're going to have a shit year, I think. Sorry, Tigers fans, but...
I agree, and I think just because I thought he had a much better year than he sort of had looking back at some of his scores. He had plenty of 30s and 40s in him because he didn't, for whatever reason, didn't get much ball or whatever, so he just got, minimal being on the edge, not as much bread and butter as being in the middle, but he did have some good scores in there, so... I think for me, if you're talking about someone like Luciano, that back row you're picking for a bit of that attacking flair, for a little bit more money, I'd probably rather go someone like Davey for feeder for like 10 or 20k more or whatever it is. So, I mean, I'd probably put him C. I think he has potential and whatever. He's probably not enormously classic relevant, but he could be like a really sneaky pot. If he was in a better side, maybe a bit better shout, but yeah, I'd probably see him up.
Yeah.
All right, next. Joseph Tapine.
We've got no idea on Tapine. What's doing? Forgot about Tapine amongst all that pack as well, actually.
Yeah. I love Big Joe. I really do. I love his game. I mean, I'm a Raiders fan. I'm just probably a little bit too in love with Big Joe. He's not a bad looking rooster either, Big Joe.
He's a good sword icon, actually.
But yeah, I just think that Big Joe will start at 13, but you've got someone like Horsburgh, and you got Young, Hudson Young. I think that they're going to share the minutes equally. I mean, the good thing about the Raiders pack is that if Tapine comes off and Young comes on, you don't lose anything, And if Louis comes off and Ryan James comes on, you don't lose anything, And so in other packs where you go, I reckon, the Tigers are shit, so Luciano will play 80 minutes. Well, you're not going to get that from Joe. He's got a little bit of injury history, and we've got the depth and we've got the dynamic players coming off the bench that I don't think you're going to get him for... I don't think he's going to play more than 50 minutes a game, ish. And at 548, yeah, I mean, like I said, the only player I'd have is CHN at 300k.
It's interesting, right? Because it's almost like I think Sticky likes playing him in the middle, but he can fill that edge spot. It'd be awesome if he could lock down that vacant Bateman spot, but I think it's probably more likely going to be CHN's once he comes back. But imagine if he could just lock down the starting edge and play 80 every week, because he could, and he's such a handful. He just seems to be so hard to tackle, gets the offload away.
He does he goes missing a little bit on the fields, sometimes when he's on for long minutes, like he doesn't get across and fill in holes and stuff a little bit, and I think they just play him in bursts, like more of an impact player, so I think he might play and go off before half-time and then come on for the back end of the game. And I just think at 5:48, someone like Twal, is he dual at 5:05? I just think there's better value there,
Yeah. No, look, it'll be interesting. There might be some people that balls out and start with him, but it won't be in my side. I mean, I'm probably chucking him C. I know he's got potential and all that sort of thing, but given his price and, lack of clarity around what his role might be, because he can be anywhere, I just couldn't put him better than that. But I'm sure there's plenty of people that disagree, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Jazz Travunga.
Yeah, look, we talked about the Warriors forwards a fair bit. This guy's, he's one of those guys that'd be amazing if you could just get some consistently decent minutes. Like, if he could get 55, 60 minutes, he'd be nearly must-have even at his price. But he isn't guaranteed those minutes. It'll be interesting to see how Brown uses him. Obviously, he's got that duality between hooker and second row, and I think he's possibly a really good draft pickup in your hooker spot. Possibly like around 4 to 6, rounds 4 to 6 maybe. But classic-wise, he's interesting. I think there'll be plenty of people that might look at him, Mados. He's got an offload. When he is on the field, he's a points per minute beast. It's like every run he gets an offload. I know as a Tohu owner last year, it was absolutely doing my head in, because it was generally a Tohu versus Jazz pod scenario each week. And when he finally got on, he just scores points in bunches when he takes hit-ups.
Yeah, he's a great scorer. Like, there was sometimes when I owned Jazz last year, and he would be on like 20 with like 20 minutes to go in the game, and because he'd just be off the field for so long, and then when he'd come on, he'd like jag 40 points in the last 20 minutes, and he'd go at an awesome click, But 5:52 for someone who's going to start from the bench.
Yeah, and Kando's just sort of said in the chat that maybe if he fills in at hooker, it might affect some of that base that he'll get through, at least with the hit-ups and the offloads, which is a fair shout depending on what happens with Egan in that role as well. So,
Jazz is he's a what if he got the minutes. He'd be a great buy if he got the minutes.
And he is a bit injury prone as well, so he can.
He looks injured every play.
So where do you rank him, fellas?
I think he's a CD for me.
Yeah, C's probably.
Yeah, off the bench and at 5:50.
Yeah, fair call.
Tyson Frizzell playing for Newey this year.
Yeah, the Frizz new club. I can only assume he's playing on the right. I mean, he played on the right with Saints, and Fitz is generally on the left, so I don't see them changing that combination around. Well, I don't know. New club, who knows? I don't know what AOB is going to do with him. I think we had a chat in the group chat earlier this week with young Daniel about Frizz over someone like Barney. I don't think for the price you could be looking at someone like Frizz over Barney. I know he's got probably a little bit more attacking upside, but he had his best season last season in a well-beaten side. He has a bit to offer our side, but I don't know. He's probably... I only assume he'll play 80 as well.
Yeah,
but
you think so? I mean, I think last year we saw something from him that we'd never not had seen before. Like, he had it was like a career year, really. And they don't have they've got a good pack, So yeah, he might play 80, but I don't see him. I don't know if he can replicate it.
I mean, the interesting thing to him is if he finds a bit more attacking stats with us somewhere, like if he's getting a bit better ball close to the line, running off Pierce, or Ponga's floating around him, or whatever it is, maybe he offers a bit more in that space. If he has a 5 to 10 try season, which he didn't have last year, there's some more points there, but I just don't like the starting price of him. Personally, his base isn't terrible, to be fair. Like, he's a 50 sort of point base guy generally. But you do need a little bit of those attacking stats out of him to blow his score up to, say, a 70 plus. He's not going to pump through 70 points in base. Like, he's not one of those guys. So, yeah, I'm probably putting him C again, maybe, you know.
It's no surprise you see Joe, Luciano, and Tyson all around that same price bracket, around a C because of that.
Yeah, happy with that.
Paddy Carrigan.
Yeah, Paddy Carrigan. What are your thoughts, Odo?
Yeah, I mean, I had him right from the start, and I carried him all the way to the end last year. I think he was a great performer. I think they got big raps on him up there as well. He's at a high price, $5.91, and you know, outside of the cheapies at the Broncos and a Haas, I don't know if there's a huge bunch of value. You know, like what's he going to play? They've named him to start a prop. So he's not going to play 13. He's going to be in the prop rotation. He's going to probably see a minutes reduction. So at $5.91, I can't go near him.
Yeah, and obviously, like, losing that duality hurts as well. Like, if you could pick him at prop, maybe a different look at him. But crazy to think, was it his debut year last year? Or did he get a run the year before? Whatever it was.
But he was new.
Like, unbelievable. Like, you know, fresh on the scene, and has an engine as good as I've seen out of any young forward. Like, he'll be phenomenal, I think, in years to come. But yeah, that Brisbane pack just sort of spooks me. You know, he's priced according to how he went last year and where he should be, to be fair. But he is a high base guy. Like, he won't have the attacking stats in him or anything like that. He's crazy base. But yeah, if he's not getting, you know, 70 minutes minimum, if not 80, I don't think you can really think about him. But yeah, from that perspective, I couldn't have him. So, you know, I'd probably put him on the upper side of C just because I still think he's a gun and all that sort of thing, but he's priced out at this stage and losing that duality, personally.
Yeah, I mean, if you can only pick him in your second row, are you going to upgrade to him? Like, you know, you couldn't take him ahead of some of the other ones, I think. And imagine, you know, if the Broncos stink it up to start the year. I mean, they did stink last year, obviously, but I just think it looked like it was just they relied on him. Like in every game, everyone's like, you know, watching the Broncos, and it's all Carrigan on trying to carry them and motivate them. Hopefully that they've got a few more people to stand up for him this year, and he's not needed as much. I think that Kevy's hinting at a little less pressure on the Haas and Carrigans, you know, of the Broncos. So.
Yeah, poor kid, flogged a dead horse. The Broncos were the dead horse, but he copped a hiding, the poor kid. So.
Yeah.
Hopefully look after him for longevity.
Yep.
Moving on.
Josh McGuire again. What'd you put him as?
We got to pass on McGuire. I can't see, was it?
It was, yes.
Already talked about him. He can go in C.
Where's the QA bogan? Where's the quality control? Can't be repeating.
Oh, well, mate, they're dual positions.
Fuck, give me a spell.
And I didn't put McInnes in this week, so...
Oh, well done. You're getting there.
Nathan Brown.
Yeah, look, Brownie... I'm a big fan of Brownie generally. He's very injury prone, but he finished the end of the year really well last year. I don't know, the way he's running from like a watching footy perspective is great, but as a Supercoach, like someone that would own him in Supercoach is probably worse because he's running at 100 kilometres an hour, like a kamikaze. He finished the year massive. I think, like, he probably won't play 80. Probably plays that 60 to 70 generally. And it's just, yeah, I don't know, he's 27 years old, so he's sort of hitting that prime. For him, I see him continuing how he finished the end of last year, and that was like, out of his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, he had one score under 60, and more than half of those were 70 plus. So he was massive to finish the year. I think he's a great shout to start the year personally. I know he probably doesn't have a great ownership, Mados. I don't know what his ownership is off the top of my head, but I don't think he's that badly priced, to be honest. Like, I'd be leaning towards him over Gerbo personally, even though Gerbo's playing 80.
Yep. Well, the Eels have a nice draw. He's going to be a pod. He runs a bit kamikaze, and he has been known to go an injury. Like he's had a couple of, long injuries. Where it's like 10 weeks out and stuff. And I think there's that little backward worry about him. But I like him at 580. I like their start, and I like him as a pod. I really do.
He's 3%.
Yeah, he gets a tick for me just like if you're just someone who gets juicy on a pod, he's a good one.
Yeah, he's a moist one. So yeah, good call.
Yep.
So I sat him at B, fellas. Is that?
Yeah, C, sort of CB is fine, whatever.
CB, yeah,
CB. See where he is.
Yep. Alright.
Next up. Straight to S.
I don't know if he's S, but he's definitely A.
He's A. I think he's probably the one that can challenge Crichton for best second row forward of the year. You don't need to say anything else. He's ultra consistent. He's got the ball play in him. He's just a worker. You do worry about concussion, but where if you're picking between him and Angus, maybe that's something you take into consideration. But,
the concussions are his only weakness, though. Like he's like the Highlander. The only way to stop him is to take his head off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the ball, I got a full bottle of Jack Daniels in the face once, mate, and I didn't get knocked out.
Yeah, he went missing for how many weeks after a footy to the back of the head.
Mate, I was just like, I've never been close to sending abuse to a player on the old socials, but I was just like, come on. But he's a weapon, and I think when you're building your front row, most people just plugged in Madison and Crichton. You did that for a reason, and they will be the top two with maybe a rival from Murray and Lolo, but they'll be top two, I think.
Yeah, good shout. Move on.
Lolo. Is Lolo S?
Yeah, look, Lolo's, well, I don't know if you've heard, Bogan, Toddy Payton's come out and said he won't be playing, I don't even think he'll be playing 60 minutes. They're sort of pushing more towards the 50-minute mark from a few years back.
First contact, mate.
Well, I agree. I think if you want the Cowboys to be doing well, he has to be on the park for at least, 3/4 of each half. I can't see why he couldn't play a good 60 minutes, personally.
Yeah, so it's easy to say it as a coach before the season starts. He's a new coach. He's going up to a new team. And they lose the first. I think actually they've got a pretty good draw to start the year, to be honest. But imagine if they lost the first 4 or 5. Lolo would start getting minutes. But also, Lolo's kind of like other players. There's a few of them where if they do less minutes, they work more when they're on. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yep.
He's got that. So I don't think the less minutes, everyone's panicking going Lolo less minutes, and I reckon he'd score as many in 50 as he would in maybe 65.
The quality's probably going to be better with these runs and that sort of thing, more effective for sure. I agree. I think, I don't know, it just sort of spooked me on him. I didn't have Crichton in, I had Lolo Maddo, but that just sort of spooked me enough to go, all right, I think I'm just going to go with Crichton to begin with. He's still very much on the watch, and if he's still there in drafts, I'm sure I'll pick him up. But
you've got two players who play 80 who have a great work rate, and you're worried about Lolo's minutes, so it should answer it for you really.
Yeah.
If you're picking 2 and you need to pick out of those 3.
But he's definitely, I know these things are happening to me. He's an S tier back rower. I think he's been phenomenal in the last few years, averaging consistently 70 plus. He might not do that this year, possibly, but I still, you're not putting him any lower than an A. I just think he's, phenomenal.
Every run he runs, it's like you just sit there racking up your Supercoach points. He's a friggin' wrecking ball. He's just the best to watch.
Tavita Pangai.
Yeah, I can't remember where we put him, but put him wherever it was.
Yeah, I think it was an A. B.
Hold on.
A, B.
He's got all the tools to be successful. I don't know if you'd pick him. He's high priced. So I'd probably take him in the front row because if I was going a premium. But
Agreed.
Not in second row.
Yep, that'll do. David Fafita.
Yeah, look, Ados, I'm interested to get your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, look. Obviously, we all know that David Fafita, of the one who can run 70 meters and just take down half a team to the try line. But I don't know if in the second row for 5.69 I want to rely on that. There's when you own David Fafita, you look at some games and he's on 20 or 30 and you're waiting for the big run. Now, more often than not, he does produce the run, but it's just such a nervous watch, when you've got him in there. And he's had a bit of off-field. He's had a bit of, you hear these stories today about paying off the house that he accidentally went to.
Yeah, that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah. One time on the drinks, I saw my missus absolutely blotto talking to the neighbour on the fence, and she was completely nude. And I went out and grabbed her and ran her inside, and I was like, sorry, mate. He was like, no, it's all good, mate. He was a Kiwi. It's all true, bro. And I was just like, Kim, you absolutely trashed, love. You're nude at the fence. She was like, I certainly am not. And she was completely nude at the time saying that to me. So, I mean, I think that Fafita's had one of those, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what's doing there. That's a bizarre old scenario, the one that's coming up today. About the payment there. So, and obviously he had the issue over in Bali, or it was not too long ago either. So, it is a little bit of a concern. I know, he's a big money signing there. He is at a new club, so there'll be some new combinations that need to get worked on. That said, I think he's played a bit of juniors with, at least, even though it won't be that relevant. It's a young hooker that comes off the bench. This is quality. This anyway. I don't know. I won't pick all my back rowers to be the base guys. Like obviously I'm Matto and Gus at this stage. I just like Fafita as that different sort of style of back row. I know there's going to be the 40s in him and stuff, which is sort of, it will happen. Like it's just inevitable. He's not going to get attacking stats every week. And there's every chance, if he starts early, he gets up to mid 650s or something, but he will plummet again at some point. So.
Yeah, you play 80, and
he's going to lull.
Yeah, you can't blame people who go him as a third or as an option because he's popular, and it's in Supercoach. It's often a good move to go with the crowd, and he can nail it. He's a weapon.
And I just don't know, like when you consider his price at 570 and. Then you mentioned someone like Barney to me. It starts to get the cog turning around. Well, I think value-wise, Barney would be someone better. But Fafita's a guy that I know he probably hasn't done it, but he could score 130, 140 in a game. Whereas Barney's not going to do that probably. Whereas, those couple quality runs from Fifi, which I think he'll do it at times. So I'm a bit on the fence with him. I still think he's good. Yes, he'll have the 40s in him, and he isn't the cheapest guy in the world. But if you're looking for something different, a bit of that blow-up potential, some of that ceiling. He's one of the best candidates in the back row.
And we think that the Titans are on and up. They've certainly bought well, and I reckon they'll get. I just see them this year as having some attack, and that benefits people like Fafita, doesn't it?
Mate, the story's gone down well in the comments as well, by the way.
Completely nude.
Me and Kando have this sort of discussion a bit about, Kando's all about the base, which is fine, but I'll still pick 4 out of 5 of those forwards to be about the base. But I do just like a bit of that blow up potential.
Where do you put him?
I'm putting him CB personally. I'm a fan. I just think again,
I put him with Brown. They're in there around the same sort of in the BCs.
Yeah.
And that's it, fellas, for the topped price second rows. Thoughts on others?
Ados, you got any that come to mind, mate?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about Barnett. I'm on Barnett. I've got him as my third second rower. I like his game. I like the way he plays in the game as well. I think he's got a bit of... he's just got a Supercoach friendly game. Mm-hmm. And there's even whispers that he might kick goals, So I just think... I'm the same as you, Brent. I take a punt on someone around as my third, like a Brown or a Fafita or someone like that. And I at a point where I had more money, I had Ryan Madison, Angus Crichton, and Tavita Pangai as my back row.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to cut some money, and he was the one that the price was right, and I like his game. And I think they got a good start to the year.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I think in the last couple of days since we've had a bit of a chat about him, I'm sort of buying in. The more I think about it and the role he'll probably play, especially with Fitz now out as well. I have got the reason why I've got Lodge and Leota in there as well now in the front row is because I am trying to get Crichton, Maddo, Barnett, and Fafita in there. I'm trying to figure that out, and I don't mind where I'm at the moment. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Barney. I think he's a really good one. Agree everything that you said about that one. The cheapies are dropping like flies, mate. We already talked about it. It's probably well known that Blore has gone down. I can't recall if we talked about it, which is a massive blow for everyone in Supercoach world. I think they've said round 6, like he's looking 8 weeks out, broken wrist or something. So that's a killer because there's not a great deal of quality around, like, good mail on someone similar in price that might be able to play what he was going to be playing possibly. Yeah. So that one sucks a bit.
Yeah, I think you look at Ricky. I think his stocks are growing. He did great in the Indigenous versus All Stars. He's been named to start in the second row this game, and I would just say to people thinking about him, he's 277. Even if he starts from the bench, he's going to make money and he's going to score okay. So you can still keep Ricky in your team. Who else have we got mids? You've got Kolo or Matangi. It looks like he might get an edge for 300.
Yep.
You got Davey from Manly for 330. I've got him in at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like he might get that edge. Well, it looks actually the strongest male. He'll get that edge at Manly for 80.
You got Murdoch. We already touched on Murdoch Priscilla as well with the duality.
Anyone else got any?
I don't know what the go is with Asiata. I mean, I'm not looking at him, but there's murmurs about Asiata. He's got the duality at mid 200s as well.
Cardi Party. Who's the shotmaster?
He loves it.
He broke his jaw. Yapping about why he doesn't want to get a shot.
I think we hear Cardi Party from the Shock every week.
Jesus.
I think he was giving it to us in last year's draft as well about Cardi not going. So, look, I'm not sure. Like I said, there's not a lot of great other options there, but that 3 to 350 odd, there could be a couple there, like you mentioned, Ados, so a couple good ones there for folks at home. I don't know about Oates. I'm sort of scarred by Oates, but he's at 14% ownership as well.
I think it's because he's in the 2s, isn't he? And he's going to come
that
off
duality.
It's going to come off the bench.
But yeah, I think that probably covers the best of it, mate. That was really good. So, it only took us 2 hours.
That's my fault.
Not at all. I think it's been really good, mate. Plenty still in the chat at the moment. The chat's been absolutely lit.
Forward at the Dragons.
Yes, agreed.
Someone says, but not SC relevant. I mean, in the trials, he looks like he's going, nearly a point a minute, ppm. But it's still a bit up in the air whether he'll get the spot.
Topanua or whatever, Satili, whatever you want to call him.
Satili, Topanua, yeah. I had him in one of my drafts of my team. He's going to obviously get a few weeks there playing 80, most likely, in a Roosters team. But, I mean, if you go back and look at his scores, it's not actually too exciting, really. But I went from him up to Barney, so I'm happy with that choice. But he's worth a shout in that price bracket. And you got Jai Arrow. He's in the 400s.
Yep. Yeah, he's a real interesting one. I think Bogue and I talked about him on the team review. I think Bogue's had him in there. I think there'll be plenty of eyes on him early, definitely. At his price and what he has been able to do in the past. He's just such a busted unit for me. He's killed me. What else we got? Benny on Oregon Kafusi. I don't know about Oregon. I think he looks good, like as an up and comer. I'm not entirely sure what the role is at Para, but I imagine that he's sort of got to start to elevate at some point. I don't know if he's going to be Supercoach relevant this year. I haven't had too close a look at him. Benny, what do you reckon of him? Tino, what are your thoughts on Tino? Did we touch on Tino?
I don't think we got him in front row. I don't remember seeing his name. Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about Tino. His
ownership's
really
crazy.
He's very highly owned because the price is right at 500k, isn't it?
40%. That's huge.
And
Does have the duality.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking about Tino versus Takiaho, and it's less money, and potentially in my mind, I kind of see them like they could get the same sort of minutes, and it was just the kicking that got me over the line, But I don't think he's a bad buy. I mean, if you get Tino, it's going to be him and Fafita are two big buys in that pack. You think he's going to get the good minutes, but I mean, everybody saw what did he score last year? 11 tries.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Is he going to score 11 tries this year in the Gold Coast team? With
not if Cameron Smith's not there.
Yeah, with Mitch Rain passing him the ball.
Yeah. Different prospect for sure.
But I don't think he's going to drop money, and I can see him scoring, probably 60s in points.
And he does have that. He's got that ceiling in him. Like he can crash the line, and he's just so big. Like again, another young guy is just a massive handful. So, he will offer at times where he probably will get those hundreds in him at times, just because of the size of him, that sort of thing, and how much of a handful he is. But I mean, I haven't looked at him personally for whatever reason. I don't know if the ownership percentage has sort of put me off him or what, but yeah, definitely be keeping an eye on him for his price. Might be someone to jump on before the rise, depending on how he goes. I don't know. Probably the only other one that I like, that I don't have him in the back row, Ados, but if he gets the start, if he's named to start, because I think there's a bit of doubt around whether he'll start or not, is Talakai.
Yeah.
Big soy sauce Talakai. I don't know if he's going to get the edge spot. I know Wade Graham's there and he's as injury prone as anyone in the comp. And then you've got Britton Nakora, who in his rookie year, he owned that spot. And then last year, went a bit off the boil.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't know whether he's a good chance to get that edge. And if he's coming off the bench, it makes it a bit hard because he's still probably effective off the bench because of the way he plays. But it would make him really awkward at 480. But I've got my fingers crossed on Big Soy Sauce.
Yeah, same. And I mean, he's still dual, isn't he? So
yeah.
So I mean, he's an upgrade. I mean, everyone's always got targets. The way that I've set up my team today, it looks like I can start with To'o as a premium centre wing, my one and only. But I'll have eyes for Talakai. I'll have eyes for probably Tupu. I loved what he did last year.
Yep.
And Nofaluma. Eventually. So those are my upgrade targets. But he's one of them because he's dual, and you can when you start nuffing out, you can put a dual up in your second row, and he's real handy then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's good, mate. Bogues, you got anything you want to add, mate?
Not really. No. I do. We've got a Discord now. So the whole idea of the Discord is that hopefully when we go back to a regular format, not this 2-hour long format, we might be able to grab people from the Discord and do call-ins essentially. So I will just put that in the chat again. So,
I'll be honest, Bogan, I've got no idea what Discord is.
Hold on, I've got to grab
it sounds great.
But
Taylor, why doesn't Bogan have video? It's because he's never clothed.
I'm
always
not actually.
takes a long shot. He's got a really long, cord, and he's just nude.
There's plenty of speculation in the chat about Bogan.
If anyone's familiar with a wrestler by the name, a wrestler that passed away a long time ago by the name of Bruiser Brody, that's who I look like. So just imagine Bruiser Brody. But the Discord invite is in the chat for anyone that wants to join that Discord. As I said, I'm going to try and set it up so when we get the regular format, at the end of the show, we'll be able to take a few callers and you can talk shit directly to us. So,
yeah. Look, I think that's about it. We just got just over 2 weeks until the season starts. Bogan will have probably a couple more shows. We'll have our live draft on the Sunday night for the BJ Champions League draft, so that'll be coming up, which is exciting. Plenty of drafts coming up. We also
we got wingers and fullbacks next week.
Yep. So still a little bit to come, but yeah, starting to get close. It's getting pretty exciting. Like I said, 2 weeks to go, and so we're nearly there,
just
guys.
Waiting on Josh King to join the leagues, and then we can release the league codes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pull your finger out, mate.
Yeah, this is your chance to feed him, Ados. If you want to get a message to him, now's the best chance.
I mean, I've already won a few bets to him, and he has cat food and everything. I'm already up. On the, I think I've got more hair.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, look, mate. I do want to say a big thank you for coming on. This was the first for us, so I think it was really good. I think you offered a lot, so it was great to have you on. Love to have you back on at some stage if you can. And there was plenty of input in the chat, so I think the people were pretty happy to see a different face apart from my ugly mug and that ugly bloody cat, mate. So
yeah, thank you. I mean, look, it's not like you guys don't do a good job, but I just thought I'd throw you. Just because of the format we're all used to, just someone to bounce thoughts off. And
also,
mate.
Adrian, you mentioned that you do some other shows. You want to give them a plug?
Yeah, I mean, I go on and as a guest host to the SC Experience. They're a bunch of good lads. We have a bit of humour on there too. Many more stories from Ada, like stuff like that. The missus at the old fence in the nut. Actually, she actually went into a BWS one time on a bet and bought alcohol completely new.
Really?
Yeah, I tried it after her and I got escorted out by security.
Same BWS?
Yeah, I went in after her, and I got a big cheer from the pub smoking section. They loved it, but the security was no fan. Luckily, she carried the carton and her drinks as well. She bought our whole order. Because once I saw that she could buy, I was like, get mine too. Because I just didn't feel like I was going to make it. And sure enough, I didn't make it.
Where's the equality? That's wrong. No, mate,
Thanks for having me.
I think you did a great job and your insights were awesome. And yeah, definitely just had a different dynamic this week. And the people loved it. So, mate, thank you. First guest host. Hopefully you'll be one of many and probably have you back at some stage, mate, if you're keen. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries. Group code once again 692-946 and at BJ and GameDay show on Twitter and also BJ and GameDay on Facebook. We haven't been taken down. The #1 news source on Facebook.
Unbelievable. How didn't we get pulled down? But yeah, guys. Cheers for joining us as always. Thanks for all the input in the chat. The chat was absolutely blowing up tonight. That was good. Still got quite a few viewers on there, Ados. So I think that was good, mate. But yeah, otherwise we will see you all next week. We'll do it all again, and who knows who we'll have next week.
Yeah. Watch the trials, see where everyone's named, change your teams, have some fun. Season regular starting soon.
Beautiful.
How exciting!
All right.
All right. See you next week. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe, share us to your friends, show your mum, whatever it is. Just get around us. The bell, whatever the bell does, just get around it. But yeah, have a good one, guys. Talk to you next week.
Bye all.